This one is, again, we are going back east over the Pacific to Fiji and the University of the South Pacific, this time with Parijata and Mojito. And we learn more about how they're actually implementing the portfolios in one of their courses. So please give them a warm welcome.
Nisambula Vinaka from our beautiful little paradise known as Fiji. Obviously, we'll be discussing using Mahara to demonstrate skills acquired in a hospitality workplace practicum. Thank you for the lovely introduction. I am Parijata Moeava, and my colleague here is our education technologist. His name is Mojito Jione. Right. So, we are from, well, I am from Pacific Technical Further Education, also known as Pacific TAFE, which is part of the University of the South Pacific, yes? And then I'm from the College of Business, Tourism and Hospitality. Just a little bit on Pacific TAFE. I believe our lovely colleague here had mentioned that you were recognized and you're following the ESQA standards. Our Pacific TAFE is also achieved an RTO, Registered Trading Organization status with ESQA as well. So we are following Australian TAFE training standards. And under Pacific TAFE, we have 5 very important departments: College of Business, Tourism and Hospitality, Arts and Humanities, Science, Technology and Environment, Foundation Studies, as well as Workforce Development Training Unit. So this is basically the unit that is available for our corporate organizations that would like to further train their staff as well. Now moving on, under the College of Business, Tourism and Hospitality, we have 14 skill-based business qualifications and 10 specialized qualifications. Now, as Irene had mentioned, under the grant, they are developing an e-portfolio for our Certificate 4 in Hospitality Operations. Under that program, we have Food and Beverage 1 and 2, Front Office 1 and 2, Events 1 and 2, Sales and Marketing, as well as the one that we are focusing on today, which is the Hospitality Workplace Practicum. Now, we are also accredited by the International Center of Excellence in Tourism and Hospitality. Moving on, as part of the Workplace Practicum, which is what we will be concentrating on today, because our e-portfolio development is based on all these areas. Now, firstly, the main areas that the students need to cover while they're on their internship is, firstly, front office, events, food service, bar service, as well as guest services. And under the practicum, it is a minimum of 6 months. However, should the employers choose to extend, they're free to do so. But I'm happy to share the success story with you. Majority of our students are already permanent employees straight after their internship, so that's a big plus for us. In terms of assessments, there are 4 main assessments that we are looking at. Assessments 1 and 2, and then they have their Moodle reflections. Apart from that, they have a logbook that they need to physically fill in, and then the supervisors, they need to sign, place their comments, and then place their stamps to say that yes, this evidence is verified. Yes, they have gone through this process. Now, some of the industry partners that we are working with is Holiday Inn, Novotel, South Sea Cruises. We have Intercontinental Hotel Groups as well. Yeah, that's just naming a few, yeah? Now, moving on. This particular chart is actually showing us the flow. So, can I move aside for a bit? This flow is based on our students. So once they start with their practical, the student records work experience on a weekly basis, right? And this is done for 6 months. So basically they use the record book, industry supervisor signs off, and this cycle keeps going on for 6 months. Now you can understand how it's going to get kind of hectic, right? You have to fill it in every week, and you have to get your supervisor to sign off, etc. And then the industry supervisors, they assess the student. And this is in terms of assessments 1 and 2. Now for assessments 1 and 2, these are actually papers that we send across. So these assessment papers have a list of criteria. So if the students are competent enough in those particular areas, then what happens is they grade the students. So it's a grading of 1 to 4. So 1 is this, 2 is this, 3 is this, 4 obviously being that they're excellent in, or very competent in that particular area. And then after that, the student submits all the assessments, and then that becomes the end of the internship. So we simply compile everything, and then we place the final grading on them. So as I had discussed, we refer to the marking guide. Just as the supervisors, they do the industry book sign-off. We look at the assessment in terms of attitude, skills, knowledge, and knowledge application, right? So whatever comes back from the industry, we then have a look at it, see what the comments are, make assessments, etc. And then assessment 3 is basically the completion, and assessment 4 is in Google Forum, so they have to go into the forum, place 2 reflections on the forum, and then we assess them in terms of, you know, if the two forums that they had filled in reflects what they are required to do while they are on the internship. Does that make sense? All right. So this is done by the Pacific Day trainer, and then after that, everything is submitted, and then they get their final grade. So those are the 2 different perspectives, one from a trainer's point of view, and the other from a student's. Now, in terms of standards, outcomes, and rubrics, as I had mentioned, we have achieved the ICE accreditation, so we maintain the ICE standards. We need to ensure that our students are competent in terms of that. We have our graduate attributes that they need to fulfill as well, our program outcomes, as well as our assessment rubrics. Now the issue here is, this is a print and paper-based workbook filled in weekly by the student and signed off by the supervisor, organized by weeks rather than in areas or outcomes for the program. So it's a bit difficult. So if we're looking at food and beverage, they have food and beverage on page 1, then on page 10, then on the other page. It's subject to which department they're in. So it becomes a bit difficult to completely assess them under food and beverage as a whole. And also in terms of regional access, this is currently only offered in the Lazala campus. So there's no other means of offering this in another country. And then came my light at the end of the tunnel, Mr. Mojito, who provided me, or us, with a solution.
Thank you, Parijata. Before I go into the solution, I just want to highlight the challenges that we have to work through. And one is obviously the digital literacy skills for students. These are mostly high school students that are coming out of high school and they're studying their certificate level. And if a student is coming from the rural side, where their access to internet and computers is very less compared to those in the urban, then they come at a very beginner level. So if you look on the other side, the beginner users that we have are about 38%. And then we have mostly in the average user where there's 58, and then just a little bit in the advanced. And if you think about that, that's the context of what SUVA is. So the technology in SUVA and New Zealand is quite different in terms of, but what we try and do is that how do we bring all these levels to a certain benchmark where they can actually successfully navigate through their e-portfolio and use the tools required. And the other one that we looked at is the access to internet. So not everyone has continuous access to the internet during the week. So 1 to 3 days in a week, about 38% of them. And then these a multitude of devices that students use. So how do we then incorporate all of that? So the solution that we talked to Parijata and her team is why don't we create a program e-portfolio? And then to support that e-portfolio, why don't we create a toolkit that will assist students in creating the e-portfolio? So what type of evidence, what multimedia they can use, what tools on the web are available. So when we sat down and we thought about what this toolkit should be, we broke it down into different video tools. So you have video editing tools, you have such as YouTube, which is available on the web, or if you use Movie Maker, which is available on Windows. And most of our users, they are Windows-based. Mac is a very expensive brand in the Pacific, so most of our users, they are either on Windows or Android. So we try to get different tools from different platforms. And we focus on video, audio, and photography. And then the other ones are things like web storage or URL shorteners, Office suites, the free ones like LibreOffice, OpenOffice, and browsers. We don't want to restrict them to Internet Explorer because we know how great Internet Explorer is. And then we have other e-portfolio sites. So if they leave the university, where do they take their e-portfolio data? All right? So can they put it in another e-portfolio system? So we want to show them how you do that. And then things like media players, blogs. So for each tool, we'll have a resource which with the how-to guides. Right? So there's a ton of resources on the web that are open, and then we look at this and we see how we can repurpose it for our users. So that's pretty much the toolkit, and towards the end I'll show you where our toolkit is at the moment. So as I was saying about the criteria, we have different platforms, right? Web tools that are accessible on the web, like YouTube, and YouTube has its own editor as well. So if you don't have access to a personal computer, as long as you can access a computer, a shared one, and go on the web, use YouTube, right, to upload your videos, edit it, and then republish it again. And then we look at mobile. Android is pretty much number one with our students. But we do have some students with iPhones and Windows phones. So we also have to consider these things. And the other operating systems for laptops and PCs, Windows is there, and I haven't seen a case where we've had Linux, but in case a student does use that, we should also be able to incorporate that. So the other criteria was whether a tool can be used without internet access, because some of them don't have continuous internet access, so it'll be important to use a software like Movie Maker, which you could run on your Windows computer. And the other part is usability. How easy is that software to use? So some of our users are beginners, some are average, some are advanced. So we try and give them a bit of all three levels. So I'll give you an example for photography, like image editing. You can go as basic as Paint in your Windows, and you can go as advanced as GIMP. GIMP, which is similar, it's open source, similar to Photoshop. And so the other part is the usage, the licenses, whether it's a freeware or free and open source software. So this is what we're trying to achieve, is that we have everything on the Moodle side, our Moodle course. We export it, and the reason I put the file section, because sometimes they export it and they think that it's already on your portfolio, but you have to put it on a portfolio page. So I've deliberately tried to separate so that so we can see that process. And if you're using web tools like Google Apps and YouTube Blogger, SoundCloud, then you could embed it to that portfolio as well. And right at the end, they can submit this portfolio back in an assignment submission on Moodle, and then the Parijata can have a look at it and see whether it's worthy of the credit. And if after they're done with the program, they move on, they can export it out and put it in an external portfolio site. So that's what our solution is. We also want to provide a sample portfolio. So in case someone is a bit doesn't want to struggle with how to organize their portfolio, we give them the 5 areas and then the introduction and assessment part. So in the introduction and assessment, they look at introducing themselves, where were they based at, the industry partner that they were based at, And then they organize, so the logbook that Parijata was talking about was, it's organized by weeks. Now we want them to organize it by areas. So all the evidence for front office goes in the front office page, bar service in the bar service page, and so on and so forth. And they all form the hospitality operations collections. So where we were at in terms of implementation, we started last year. We're currently at the student workshops. And then we're constantly improving the version that we have until we reach a final agreed version amongst the team and the director for Pacific TAFE, and then we'll pilot it in the second semester. So when the students are ready to go out, this should be ready for them to take with them. And obviously it's a research grant, so we need to provide some research. So we need to evaluate how effective our approach was, our solution, and how do the industry feel about using e-portfolios. And we're still trying to think about how do industry actually participate in the e-portfolio part. So that's still something to think about, but that's for the future, I guess, for us. So the impact. So currently this certification is offered just in our one campus, Lodala campus, and we have many campuses, so in order to reach the other campuses, as Irene had suggested in our earlier presentation, this e-portfolio would do that. And the director for Pacific TAFE is very interested in this project, so if it's successful, we should go, he wants it to go to the entire Pacific TAFE programs. And the other part is that our student and our staff, they now have this exposure to all these digital tools. And Parijata now is probably is an expert now in using e-portfolios and all these video tools. And the other major one, the last one, is employability. It's that how can I take this portfolio and show it to my future employer? And that's the main one from the student perspective. So that's our team with the director of Pacific TAFE, Pasrio at coordinator, Parijatas. So a team from the Pacific TAFE, and Irene, who's our project lead, Rajnil, who's the systems developer, so anything to do with Moodle, Mahara, Turnitin, all the learning systems, he's the guy. And then I'm education technologies, and I train most of the faculty in the University of the South Pacific. Okay, before I conclude, I just want to show, I know most of you want to see the samples, and so this is a sample portfolio that we've been trying to work on. So the introduction, so the collection is here, we have the menu. So these are the 6 pages that I suggested. So this is Parijata's profile page, and we have the program learning outcomes. So at the moment, the assessment 1 is a paper-based, where the lecturer will, so they can scan it and put it up there. And then assessment 2 is there. And then if we go to bar services, so we've put the program outcomes or objectives at the top so that it'll be easier for them to tag it. And with the discussion around smart evidence, this is, so we haven't moved on to the version with smart evidence. We are on 15.10, so it's something good for us to come in and see how it's actually done, because there's competency frameworks on Moodle as well, and it's not the same as the one on Mahara. So which one do we choose? So this is basically how we want things, and then we also want the reflection part as well. So that they will get it from Moodle. The discussion forums, they can take their reflections over here. And if they export it, this is a HTML export. So this is credit to Rajanil for his making it look a little bit presentable. So they just export this. They can. One of the things that we want students is not just export and keep on your PC, but how do you share it? So we have also identified a website called Folio Spaces that you could also export as a lib2a format. So, and our guides. So we have a Mahara Learning Guide because we need to change the screenshots, our interface, and it's very customized for us. We just build on the user manual from Mahara, and then we have it in a ebook format on Moodle, so that they can export it as an EPUB and take it with them when they don't have internet. So we had it as a PDF before, but this is where we're going towards in terms of giving access to students. So everything from creating their resume, adding journals to collections, right up to when they export. So that's the guide on Mahara. The toolkit that we've been working on, and this is the rough. It's basically all the tools that we think the students could use, right? So for audio, Audacity, MP3 cutter as an app. Photo editing, we have Google Photos that you could use. Another good one is Pixlr by Autodesk. It's both web and then GIMP, as I had said. So that's the toolkit in terms of the list of tools. Also created something for them to embed the external feed, external media, and the Google Apps, which is available on Mahara manual. And we want all of this to reside in something on Moodle. So like a toolkit, and we use the tagging facility. So every resource is put into sections in a Moodle book, and each Moodle book is tagged. So if each book and resource is tagged, so if I click on video, they get all the different tools and resources. And within each book is basically the list of tools that I showed you. Still working on how to make a good interface for this. So YouTube and links to guides and everything. So with the student workshop, if we need to create much more simpler guide, so that's something that we have to look at when we're doing this workshop with students when they use YouTube. Is the support documents for YouTube sufficient for our students? Yes, so that's basically the toolkit and everything. So this is a work in progress. So I'd really appreciate if you could share your experiences. We're not experts in this. We're trying to organize things as best as we can. And part of the reason why we come here is to actually network with professionals like you, and that we would appreciate if you share your experiences in this area, and we could collaborate or work on our direction in terms of going towards a better e-portfolio toolkit. So now I'm at the end, and any questions? Yes.
Do you have any experience using the Mahara mobile app in that process?
Because we haven't gone to version 16, we haven't used the mobile app. But I know with the version, the current version is that you could have the mobile app as well, similar to the Moodle one. We're using Moodle 3.1 and Mahara 15.10. Any other questions or suggestions, comments? Yes.
Mojito, Parijata, how frequently are you expecting your students to reflect during the time they are with you in the program?
The frequency would be subject to their training while they're on their internship. So what will happen is, for example, if on their first day they have coffee training, so they will be reflecting on that training. The reason being is that once the training happens, then they are able to reflect on that. So if it's coffee today and tomorrow a cocktail, then the next day they'll, reflect on a cocktail. If it's just a normal bar service, they don't feel that, it's something that they would be able to reflect on, then they wouldn't. Or they might just include it in their overall reflection. So that's kind of the frequency that they'll be going at. Any other questions?
Have they started already, or they're just about to start?
They're about to start. So we've taken them through one session already, so they are still familiarizing themselves. So once we go back, I'll be checking up on their portfolios to see how far they've got it. And then we will schedule another run-in with them just to see, where they're at and how they're feeling about things, and just to coach them through it.
Yeah, I may have missed it, but industry play a little part in there with a couple of the assessments.
Yeah, that's correct.
How are you incorporating that into the portfolio?
Okay, so that's still
Up in the air?
Yeah, it's still up in the air, but I was thinking something on the lines of providing them with access.
Yes.
Because we are dealing with different companies, so we're thinking of providing them limited access just only to those particular student portfolios, only in terms of those sections, not to the entire portfolio. So that's something that we'll be speaking to our systems guru right here about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they could write comments.
Exactly. So they come and they write their comments, and then I'm able to see the overall portfolio. Any more questions? Any suggestions?
It is under brief.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And if you like, you can follow us on Twitter for any updates on the toolkit as well. So